Hey, everybody, it's Honesty, and this is the Right Honesty Podcast. Attorney General, how are you?
I'm wonderful.
Yeah, I'm glad you're wonderful. So I know you're gonna lead us today a little bit, but you got me in trouble with Love Belvin on the internet.
Uh, did I get you in trouble? Did I? Did I get you in trouble?
Yes, because you was talking bad about Asmir. Did you see? Did she listen? That was you that did that.
Fine, and I apologize, didn't I? Well, wait, I
I
actually,
didn't.
I actually did not apologize. I simply took accountability.
You did.
There
You
is a
did.
difference for
I
those
didn't do
who
either one. That's your
exactly.
fault.
You absolutely pointed at me, and I forgive you for that. Whatever.
Ooh,
I thought we were ride or die, but apparently we're not. So
to
I
where are we riding and
filed.
why must I
I was
die?
about to say, I filed this away. I'm going to have to take you off my ride or die harem list.
Please do.
But for those who missed it, didn't see it, a few weeks back, Love, as she tends to do, posted a happy birthday message for Asmir. Divine Jacobs, and I made a snarky comment tagging my podcast bay, something along the lines of noting that sociopaths or psychopaths both fit,
Hmm.
get to celebrate birthdays too.
And
And
I
HP
said,
responded,
unfortunately.
and this clearly slipped through, but then Love caught it because a couple of days ago she was like, "Excuse me, no toxicity on the birthday posts." So I did take accountability for that. And she knows that we love her to the moon and back. Her characters, some of them not so much, and we
Right.
have not done Asmir.
And will not stint neither. Not one time.
HP can't. HP
Cannot, will
cannot.
not. Speaking of which, I understand that you have been holding out on me, and I'm actually wondering if you can even be impartial. You work for the King's organization.
I learned this a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because
And then gonna let me find out on the internet. You ain't even tell me.
well, I forgot.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry. There was a lot going on work wise, but she had told me, but then I was sworn to secrecy and
Okay.
didn't realize when she or CCJ posted the updated org chart for the Connecticut Kings that I was on there. But when she told me, she swore me to secrecy because I text her complaining and I was like, this is what happens when these authors give you direct access, right? I give a little bit of legal counsel and I demand full unfettered access. But
I'm sure she's regretting her decision.
no, she doesn't. Okay, she loves me, okay, and my shenanigans. But yes, I am the offensive coordinator. I'm wondering though, I think I know the answer. I am wondering though, if what happens is that I lead Lons into a more logical, reasonable, healthy kind of love.
Okay, so you go
By
so
an office romance.
You go
right?
direct him out of his relationship.
Yes, because he needs
Coordinate him right on out.
He needs to be away from Nadira immediately.
That is hilarious.
He just doesn't know it. And Karen Corrington, I don't know if she listens to our show, but Karen is probably the only person I've seen thus far who has claimed Lons. Karen, girl, we can share him. I mean,
Claim
Raji
him as
is
a
mine.
what?
Claim him. Like,
oh my
remember
Lord.
we didn't have as much of an issue with Lons.
No, but you had limited patience. He is tainted, forever unclean.
That's not nice. That is not nice. That is not why we're here today. Please focus.
That's not okay. Let's get on task. But I do question your ability to be impartial. When the Kings come out, I may have to find somebody else to do podcast. Okay.
How dare you? How dare you fire that shot and keep driving? You coward! You will not.
You okay. One more thing. One more thing before we really get started. Child is submersible.
Who?
Did you see that the people that's down there to the Titanic and got lost?
You know what? I saw a headline about how much oxygen was left, and I kept scrolling. I did not key into that, but I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," and then went to the next story.
Them people have already gone crazy inside that box. If they get them people out, They're gonna have to shoot them or put them away. They have already gone crazy.
How long have they been under there?
So it's been like a couple days, but the problem is, to begin with, the thing is only big enough for one person to extend their legs, and that's if they sit at a diagonal. It is legitimately a tiny tube. And somehow that somebody had unearthed a lawsuit where a person who used to be responsible for safety and the efficacy of the equipment and blah, 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 something, told them that it was unsafe and they fired him. But I don't know how all this connects or whatever. So I won't, that's neither here nor there. I'll put a reference in the show notes, but I'm not talking about the logistics of that part. I'm just saying I cannot imagine paying $250,000 to get inside of a tiny tube to see the Titanic, and the thing ain't even got no windows.
Oh, this was a tourist trip?
Yes, child.
Oh, these people. I can't.
These people spent $250,000 to get down there. And the thing, the little submersible, the man, I saw a video of him from several months ago where he was talking about how it was like mostly self-built, and like he had gotten some of the parts from Camper World or something. It's a mess, child.
Okay, now this is making more sense, because as you were talking, I'm sitting here and I'm like, as obsessed as they are about the Titanic, I thought that they had pretty much, done all in terms of grabbing stuff, digging stuff, sending the cameras down, so on and so forth. So I did not appreciate that this sounds like a private sector.
Yes.
Some idiot built a tube and said, "Oh, I'm going to do this. We don't need an oceanographer and people with, that kind of truth." Because I am pretty sure that they have concluded, I thought many moons ago, to this point, the Titanic was so deep that it wasn't necessarily safe.
Yeah. It's 13,000 feet down.
Exactly.
And I don't understand why are you bothered with it? Of all the things, good God Almighty, it's on like the surface.
Stick with the recreated 3D imaging and the photos and whatever they were able to recover. Exactly.
Stay on the surface of the earth where you're supposed to be at.
And there are 5 bajillion documentaries on that blasted ship. I mean, literally.
Where the people that got inside the box, they went on down there and now they can't find them. And I can't. First of all, everybody in the tube is soaking wet because of the condensation. Their body heat on the inside against the coldness of the outside. They have already gone crazy. They have already gone crazy. I hope that they had medication in there for them people to take themselves out, because I cannot imagine.
Well, let's look at this, an unintended, unrealized benefit of our friendship, because, I passed right past that story. And yet here we are. I've learned something. I may or may not do some digging when we're done to learn a little bit more. I probably won't, because I don't really care. But
no, don't, because it really is. It's like it really is the boredom of the rich. Don't look into it.
Ridiculous. just ridiculous. Look, when they sent, and I say this because I'm a Trekkie, right? When they sent Chekhov's, was it Chekhov's or was it Scotty's ashes into space, right? I love that. I was like, oh, the symbolism. Oh, that's amazing, right? This kind of thing, I'm kind of like, I can't, like, who cares?
Yeah. Why did y'all do this? But now, I hope I ain't nothing left to do now. This is what you're done.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to you. Now that we're ready to get on task, take us to where we're going.
So after our shenanigans at the beginning, we are continuing our trend this season of new to one of us authors. And this week we are covering Monique.
We are.
We had the pleasure of reading Uncovering Love and Blue. And Monique is a writer that I think it's a fair description to say she does a great blending of like urban elements with romance elements, I think.
And suspense. I like this.
And suspense. And so while her catalog, and I'm pretty sure I've read her entire catalog with the exception of, I think the Shot Clock series is the only thing I haven't read, and that was a collaboration between her and AJ Davidson, I think is the other author's name, who's also her publisher, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
But I've read and Monique's catalog, really enjoy her writing. She hails from Pensacola, Florida, and that figures,
Hmm.
similar to what we've seen other authors do, where they center the stories around or in their hometown.
Me
And it's because
included.
of M. Monique that I now know that Mobile, Alabama is driving distance to Pensacola, Florida.
It is.
Yeah, I did not know that because all I knew about Pensacola was that Roy Jones Jr. hails from there.
Hmm.
So thank you, Monique, for that geography lesson for us Northerners. Um, but we're going to talk about Uncovering Love and Blue, which is apropos because they are brothers.
Yes.
The Summers twins, Gray and Blue. And so I will talk a little bit, give the summary of Gray's story, and HP will give the summary of Blue, and then we'll talk about the things that we like between the two.
Hmm.
So Uncovering Love is the story of Gray Summers and Gianna Phillips. And we meet Gianna first. We meet her while she is pregnant with her first child, married to her first husband, and then tragedy strikes. Her parents, who she loves and loved and adored, her father allegedly kills her mother and then commits suicide. Her father was a long-time police detective in Pensacola, and then had retired, and he and Gianna's mother were enjoying retirement, and out of nowhere he seemingly flips out, kills his wife, and then kills himself, and Gianna never accepts that.
Hmm.
So when we meet Gianna, her then husband, comes and tells her just awful news about what has happened with her parents. Her first husband, Wyatt, is also a police officer. And that's our introduction to Gianna. We fast forward, it's 4 years later. Gianna and Wyatt are divorced. She is estranged from her sister, who really couldn't cope with what happened with the parents, and the fact that Gianna could not let it go, could not let go and accept that the father had murdered the mother and then killed himself. Gianna never believed that. And so when we meet her, she's still pretty low, mentally and emotionally, but she and her son Theo, who's adorable, are surviving. Wyatt divorces her allegedly because she wouldn't get therapy and couldn't seem to move past the tragedy that happened. And then lo and behold, one day she goes to the police station and she literally bumps into Gray Summers, who
Hmm.
is a newer detective um, on the force. And as described, he is just walking sex, and big dick energy, and just right,
Right. All the
with
things.
his badge hanging from a platinum and diamond chain, which I just
Right.
love the imagery of that, because I was like, that's pretty badass. Your detective's badge is hanging on a platinum and diamond chain, and there's instant attraction there.
Hmm.
And so what we see is, going to your point about suspense, we see this attraction between the two of them that Gianna fights very hard, because even though she and Wyatt are no longer together, she's mindful of the fact that he's still a police officer, Gray is a police officer, and she's also thinking, I'm not good for anyone, because
Yeah.
Wyatt and her sister and others in her life have convinced her that she's crazy. Oh, by the way, Wyatt went and married her best friend, which
Ain't
is a
that something?
whole other kettle of fish that we'll get into. But Gray, to his credit, does not give up. And one of the many things that I liked about Gray's character was that he seemingly knew when to push and when to fall back, when to push. And so he
Yeah.
did not bulldoze her, right? He didn't bowl her over. His persuasion was actually very smooth and very gentle. He just kept showing up, but often he wouldn't. He would just show up with lunch or something and just sit there and let her talk, not really try to convince her to be with him. And so this beautiful love story develops, while Gray also, in the context of his professional role, begins looking into some cold cases that we find out were connected to Gianna's father, and what he had been looking into. And what comes out of that, to your point about suspense, is political corruption, police corruption. We find out that Gianna was right, that her father did not murder her mother and then himself. They were murdered. They were set up because her father had stumbled onto the truth and became like a dog with a bone and wouldn't let it go. And it implicated not just a high-ranking judge, but also several police officers, including Gianna's ex-husband. And so Gray is the one that ultimately unravels that, while he and Gianna are also falling in love. So it gave some really juicy bits without becoming overly complicated. And I think, as you had noted, it's not like it's, in terms of page count, she doesn't drain it. It's under 300 pages, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. It's close to
212 pages. And so a fairly tight story where she covered where she could have just left it as romance if she wanted to. I like that she added the spice of the suspense. It gave it just enough oomph without it becoming like, okay, this is taking over the story.
Yeah.
And the chemistry between the two of them is just so sweet to watch it unfold. And I think also particularly his relationship with her son, Theo, which reminded me very much of Josiah and Journey in The Endgame from Rayleigh's, who we talked about several weeks ago. So that's my synopsis of Uncovering Love. And now I'll turn it over to you to summarize Blue.
Okay, let me see if I can get it right. So, Blue is about Jacoba or Yacoba Christmas, who is a rapper and secret vocalist from Florida, who is 2 years, I think, into her fame, or into her career takeoff. She has some childhood friends around her. There's a cousin that she grew up around and used to rap with, but rarely gets to see since her career has taken off. And of course, attached to the cousins and the junior high folks, there's a little bit of a spider web of people around her. None of whom, I guess it comes out that she can't trust all the people in her circle.
Yes.
She is in an abusive relationship with a dope boy, Romeo, who, by all in the beginning of the book, it's clear that he's taking advantage of her, and she hasn't found her voice, or doesn't have her legs under her enough to get away from him.
Yes.
He spends a night at her home, or maybe she's at his home, whichever one, but the house is raided by the FBI. And the person who takes Romeo down, physically handcuffs him, is this figure that she can't see his face, nothing about him, but she can just tell that there is something about him. And so you get that something about him energy in this one the same way that you do in Gray's book.
Although they lock eyes.
They do. I was just about to say, they lock eyes, and it's clear that there's that spark, which I love a spark book.
Yes.
But of course, because this mystery man is doing his business, he ain't got time to ask up for her number, so he going about being in the FBI, whatever he's doing. But we find out that the person is Blue. He retires and goes into private security just as a way to keep himself nimble. And she requests, when she runs into him through the course of doing business, and she requests that he be the one to be her private security and that he can build his own team. Almost the first night of them working together, her truck is shot up. And that is the beginning of him almost being her not almost fully being her protector. She hires him to go with her to visit family for several weeks around the holiday. And through the course of this, the suspense really pops out, because you find out that she's being stalked. You find out that there is another incident at her cousin's party that includes gun violence, and a couple people killed, couple people injured, and just sadness and mayhem seem to be following her. But whenever it pops up, Blue is her shield.
Yes.
And so while all of this is happening, she is not able to ignore the fact that she got the tingles for him.
Yes.
And so
the tingles.
And so while they're in Colorado with her family, who we meet her parents, and then Blue's parents, and Gray and Gianna, all them making an appearance as well, even Tiffany, who is one of their sisters. she's wanting to be around him, but he's giving her the cold shoulder. It's very bodyguard esque.
Yes,
Where
yes.
she is sort of taunting him, and just in little ways. She's not being like ridiculous. But it's clear that she wants his attention, and he is trying to pretend like he don't want hers.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually that tension gives way to them actually coming together emotionally, physically, and all those things. And even though her parents fall into danger, her cousin and her cousin's fiance fall into danger, some folks get killed. Romeo, it's a lot. It's a lot with the suspense. It's a lot.
Yes.
But her and Blue end up beautifully together. And I was rooting for both of them, except for one time when I messaged you and said, hey.
Yes.
But all the rest of the time, I was very happy for their push-pull. I was happy for the sexual tension. I was happy for the insta love. I wanted all of it.
Yes.
So is there anything you would add to that?
No, I think that's a great summary.
All right. So do you want to go to the questions? Do you have an opening statement? How should we do this?
I think, why don't we start with the questions?
Okay.
Start with the questions. So what did I love?
Yeah. Let's do impressions first. What were your overall impressions of both, either, however you want to do that?
I'll take both, because I loved the way it was clear what Gray and Blue shared in common, but it was not copy and paste. And I appreciated that, right? I think she walked a fine line of, yes, they're identical twins. They love hard. They are very affectionate and willing to be vulnerable with the people they love. They've got tremendous big dick energy. Love that they were both in law enforcement. The only difference, not only difference, but I would say the major difference in terms of how they interact with their women, and the way she positioned it, it was easy to understand why. With Gray, he was immediately vulnerable and hard on his sleeve with Gianna, right? He wanted her, no games, no this, he wanted her. And he did not hide how he felt about her and the future that he saw for them. With Blue's reticence was because they were in a professional employer-employee type setup, right? Like you said, a la The Bodyguard. And so Blue was very attracted to her, but he kept sticking to, this is a professional relationship and we should keep it that way because it is for your safety and in our best interest that we keep it that way, which is different from, I'm damaged, so I'm holding back and you have to draw me out. Right. Which we've seen with other characters where they really make, in particular men, where they make the woman work for it simply because they're like, oh, no. Like Blue's reason was
tolerate that.
Well, exactly. Whereas Blue's reason was, it was a legitimate one. It wasn't a bullshit, I want you to just work for it. He really was like, I think we should keep this professional. But as we're in his head, we are seeing it is getting harder and harder for him to keep the lines between them straight.
Well, and you can see too that the more he falls for her, the harder it is for him to keep his feelings out of the equation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I liked that. And I liked that they were almost mirror images of each other, but they were presented differently. So to me, I did not read Blue and say, well, this is exactly like Gray. It wasn't, right? They presented differently while sharing certain things that were quote unquote identical in very sweet ways, right? The fact that they would always tell their parents and their siblings, I love you every night, right? And things of that nature where you're just like, oh, I'm melting.
Very sweet,
right? So I loved that. And that was kind of like my overall impression of, I liked how she presented these two characters. And I thought it was refreshing that they were in law enforcement as opposed to them being a hustler, right? Which I enjoy those stories too, or them simply being a billionaire businessman. I enjoy those stories too. I thought her making them both in law enforcement was a nice spin on tried and true, where you still give them those characteristics. And yes, they did come from money, but they also weren't tossing money around like it means nothing to me, right?
Right.
So I enjoyed all of that, which made both stories just very enjoyable to read and experience. And they were two different experiences.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. I think for me, I am more partial to Blue than I am to Uncovering Love, but I think that could be recency bias just because I read Blue second. Um, and I think there would, because it was longer, there was just more suspense for me to be waiting on shoes to drop. But I think, and I don't say that to compare them. I think I say that to say, like, she had told, like, if I was halfway won over with Uncovering Love, I was all the way won over by the time we got to Blue.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
terms of just falling in love with this family and with both families, and the kids and Tiffany, and the other security guys making fun of Blue once it was clear that he was falling deep in love and wasn't no way out for
Yes.
him. He was a
Yes.
goner. Like, so
Yes.
there was more time to just kind of settle in with the characters, I think,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
simply because it was just more pages, not because it was like she fell off on one or the other or whatever. I think I enjoyed them both.
Yeah, and I also think there's something to be said for the spice of um because Gianna was the one who was being reticent
Yeah.
in Her and Gray, right? But it was coming from a very hurt,
Mm-hmm.
grieving, mourning place. So it's not like entertaining may not be the right word, but you understood where she was coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't really engage in sort of like sarcastic, witty banter with
Yes.
Gray while she was
Yes.
trying to hold back. Whereas Blue, again, we talked about why he was being reticent, but he also played with her, right? And so he
Mm-hmm.
was making little smart comments, which I think just added a spiciness to it. In terms of, he was holding back, but he was letting her see, a flash here, a flash there. It's like, no, I do want you, but I'm avoiding that. And I just think we naturally probably enjoy that tension a little bit more because you're like, oh, look at them, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember I remember when Blue dropped. I'm trying to remember if the timing between Uncovering Love and Blue, but I remember the frenzy being, I think, more around Blue than Gray. Like, people want both of them, but I think
Okay.
the general reaction seemed to be similar to yours, that people really were hot in the pants for Blue. Like, they take them both. They take either or, but I think that spiciness between Jacoba and Blue really resonated with people even more. So there was a lot more
Yeah, because I think
chatter.
and it's the difference between Gianna coming out of her shell and him being sort of ever present and supportive. And
Mm-hmm.
like you're saying, the banter and the will they, won't they, or when will they
Yeah,
between Blue and Jacoba, it was just more active
yeah,
because we all want to know when y'all gonna take your clothes off. So
right, right.
like,
And boy,
and
did
it's
they.
but it was more about, when is he even going to be nice to her?
Yes.
Especially when we
Well,
know that in his internal processes, he wants to be everything to her.
yes.
But he's putting up this facade, and it's not that he's mean, but
Right.
he's just not giving her an inch when she very much
Exactly.
wants an inch.
Exactly. And it's like the payoff, though, like when he does give in and we get to see Blue, like you said, in his feelings, in love, just overflowing with affection. That is very, very sweet to see. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
I think initially it's funny because initially I was partial to Gray as between the two. I think the first time I read them, I was kind of like, no, I get it, but I felt more partial to Gray. And I think it's because Gray pulled my heartstrings more in the way that he engaged with Theo, where I was like, oh, look at him.
Yeah.
He's already daddy.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
but now, with the reread, like I'm kind of like, yeah, it's a hard one to call. I'll take them both. We'll just have a threesome. It's fine. Like, we can, what is it? A twin, what is five? Twin couple, I don't know. The
Yeah.
five of us can all be one happy family. I'll share the
Yeah.
brothers. I'll help mother the children.
I
Change
ain't
my
taking
last
nobody
name to
kids, so you can
Summers.
keep that. Yeah.
Well, and they have it between the two of them. They just procreating all over the place. So
Yeah, because I
it's a
haven't
lot.
read Tiffany's book, but I hear tell that there are more that babies abound. Babies
Yeah, if I'm
abound.
not mistaken, Blue and Jacoba have twins.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
think she's
Yeah,
like
I think she
pregnant
says
with
it
a
at the end of
third
the
one.
book. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
another one on the way.
Bless
So
her heart. I'm not able to.
exactly. Because
Okay. What did you love from either one or both or whatever?
I definitely I love the willingness to be vulnerable, and we saw that more with Gray than Blue from the very beginning, right? Because Gray was trying to draw Gianna out, and he understood that, you know, and if that was going to happen, he needed to lay his cards on the table, and that wasn't really a struggle with him. But I loved how she presented these two, you know, as they're described, you know, big, strong, sexy man's man, right? But both very clearly also piles of goo for the people they love.
Yeah.
Just that was not like you didn't have to fight through a lot of stuff to get to the heart of gold. Like the heart of gold was there immediately with both of them.
Yep.
With Gray, absolutely loved his relationship with Theo. Like I said, it reminded me of Joe and Journey, just how he immediately gravitated towards Theo, and he would call Theo baby. And I was just like, oh, little things like that, because, you know, we've talked about in different contexts how little Black boys are, you know, they don't get the same luxury of just being babies and children. And little Black girls don't get the luxury of just being little Black girls before they're sexualized. And you know, so it was just such a joy to read, you know, page after page where he would call him baby from the very beginning. And I was like, oh, that is so adorable. And then Theo just starting to gravitate towards him and call him daddy. And I was like, you know, on the one hand, that could be because it was happening so soon. But on the other hand, he was responding to the man who was being daddy. And Gray was like, yep, that's me. That is me.
He was into it. He was like, you exactly. That is the right
he was
thing
very much into it. And it was interesting also. And one of the things that I enjoyed, I wouldn't say I loved it, but I enjoyed how she positioned the Wyatt Gray tension, right? Because Wyatt was deep in his feelings watching Gianna move on. And then
it was very not saying it was very from Fraud, who Davy. Who lost it all.
Yes, right. And I actually, like, in the end, I was kind of like, you know, I dare I say that I had just a tiny bit of for Wyatt when all was said and done. I had zero for Sade, the wife, for the second wife. But I didn't, you know, I guess I would say I didn't hate Wyatt the way that I normally do in these situations where it's pretty clear cut that the husband, you know, really just did some really fucked up stuff. And you're like, die, just die. Cause he does. I mean, he does die, right? He does die. And when you find out that, you know, he had kept Theo as his beneficiary on the life insurance, and he was, you know, allowed himself to be blackmailed into divorcing her, right? And still loved her, but just made, you know, a series of really dumb decisions that, you know, cost him his family. Whereas Sade, I mean, I wanted her to get everything that was coming to her. Jail was too good.
She was a mess.
In like a Colombian jail or something.
Oh Jesus, not the
exactly.
It made me think about so one thing I liked about both of these is that everybody had a smart problem. When people in books have stupid problems, I can't handle it. But
yeah, that's fair.
They had smart problems, so I totally see him making a, you know, the badge make you feel good. It makes you feel very
Mm-hmm.
powerful and
Mm-hmm.
protected. And you get favors everywhere you go and thank you for your service, and people look the other way. And so sometimes you can take a little too much leeway. And it sounds like that's what he did. Like, it sounds like they hit a little bit of a rough patch and he took one too many steps toward the dark side, and then there was no coming back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it reminded me of this, it's not the same situation at all, but there was a police officer outside of Chicago who faked his own death. He
Lord.
faked a suicide and tried to blame it on an encounter with some thugs, I guess, on the street. And the reason that he faked his death, well, he died. He killed himself, but he tried to stage it to look like he was murdered on the job. And so he did this because he had been siphoning money out of a fund. And there was a
Mm,
new city manager that was like, everybody take inventory. Let's look at all the receipts. And
mm,
he knew he was getting ready to go to jail. And so
mm.
he didn't want to not get his pension. He didn't want his family to be kind of left out there. And so he and his wife talked about it, and they agreed that he would do this. And so he
Lord.
killed himself. He shot himself one time. Then he called for backup. And then right as he heard the sirens approaching, he shot himself fatally. And the crime scene didn't look right, but they were so busy focusing on the fact that there was an officer involved shooting, and then the wife was blaming it on Black Lives Matter child. It got to be a mess, even though she knew from the beginning that he had done this himself. But this was all in the name of not being terminated, or, you know, kicked off the force in disgrace and
When
losing
he would
out
lose
on all of
everything.
those benefits.
Hmm.
And so this is a person in real life that has gone to those extremes. So it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense that Wyatt would make these decisions.
Yeah. No. What? Wow. That I'm gonna have to.
I'm a child. Don't worry, because I'm gonna get you the details. I'm gonna get you the
Because
name.
I'm like, goodness, I mean, when truth is stranger than fiction, right? It's like
Yes.
some of these things you're like, this is ridiculous, and then you then you see a news story and you're like,
Well,
maybe
maybe
not.
not.
Um, yeah, yeah, no, he had definitely painted himself into a horrible spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which cost him way more than he thought it would.
Yep.
So in the end, we are glad for Gianna and Theo, because he has no relationship with Theo.
Right.
And so for Gray to step in, and at 3, Theo's not going to remember him not being there, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then they, by the time Blue has his book, actually, I think by the end of their book, right, we know that Gray, baby Gray, is in the picture,
Yes.
little girl. And here they are. They're going to change Theo's last name to Summers, and
Mm-hmm.
so it ends on a super sweet note. And then you get to see them, a little bit of them again in Blue, and then a little bit more in Tiffany's book, which is actually titled Kingston, which is the name of the
Her guy.
man who will
Okay.
become her husband.
Okay. For me, I love the suspense of it. So this
Mm-hmm.
is my first time in romantic suspense in a very, very long time, and I really enjoyed the suspense element. I enjoyed the fact that the slow burn nature of Blue and Jacoba,
Mm-hmm.
as much as I enjoyed the insta love of Gray and Gianni.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
because I think that, I mean, of course, there was a sweetness in both, but the movies and you know, the everybody cooking together and just the little
yes.
things that they were doing to busy themselves in her parents' house really lent to me just kind of falling in love with them as they fell in love with each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I also, because even speaking of smart problems, even in Blue and Jacoba's book, how so Sunny and Sunny's friend. I'm not Sunny, Quay and Sunny, because
Yes.
Jaquay is her cousin and Sunny
Yes.
is the terrible friend.
Mm-hmm.
Even that notion of having a person that's close to you have somebody that's close to them, and in order to
Yes.
be with your person, you got to tolerate their person,
Yes.
and
Yes.
not, when you so like cutting people off is a rich people thing. Like it's a privilege to be able to actually cut somebody out of your life, but in a lot of communities and in a lot of income brackets you can't. because you need the benefit of that community. If you're not gonna need your hair done, if you're not gonna need somebody to watch your kids, if you're not gonna need help with the bill. I mean, it's the reason why it's so hard to leave a partner. Like, it is really hard when y'all relying on each other for your income. And so cutting people out of your life, and you know how people have, they talk about it now because it's all the rage, like no contact.
Yes.
You can't do that until you are not financially dependent on that person anymore. And
that's a great point.
Yeah, and even then, you might still have like some emotional dependencies that you have to work out. And so it made perfect sense to me that 2 years into stardom, and who knows how many years that she was doing parties and clubs and, block parties and stuff, that she could not tell her cousin, don't bring Sonny over here.
Yeah,
because she was still in the mindset. Yeah, she was still in the mindset of, we all in the hood together. Like, I can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I also that's a great point. I also I chalk that up to they had enough distance between them. It's not like she saw Sonny that often anymore, right? Yeah. And so I almost felt like she was willing to tolerate Sonny because she was taking her in small doses, right? Mm-hmm. Figure, well, I'm not going to see her every day. It's not going to be forever. But of course, we get to see in how things play out with having Sonny around, why not just saying from the door, you know what, she and I don't get along. How about while I'm here, when you come over to visit, you just don't have to bring her, right? If I come to your house and she's there, I'll interact with her, but don't bring her to my parents' house.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And why, it ends up backfiring on her to not take that kind of step, because Quay was, bless her heart, but was acting like that. I understood more, right? I understood more why, as Quay was watching Sonny evolve into someone she no longer liked and had less and less in common with. I understood why it was complicated for Quay to just be like, you know what, we've grown apart. We want different things, right? I didn't understand why she kept dragging Sonny to Jacoba's house, knowing that they didn't get along. I was just like, girl, she don't have to come with you everywhere. Like,
and you know what else I chalked it up to? Right. You know what else I chalked it up to? If I don't invite her, it's worse.
That's fair. She didn't want to hear her mouth. And that goes back to not being ready to end your friendship of 2 decades, right? We knew that Sonny and Quay had been friends since childhood, and now they're well into their 20s. So, almost 2 decades of friendship. And even though she knows that Sonny is just changing in a way that's not positive for her, for Quay, it is still difficult for Quay to just not have contact with Sonny.
And Sonny and Quay live in the same town.
Yeah.
And so Jacoba she just blown in for 6 weeks.
That's right.
And so if I prioritize Jacoba, when she leave and go back on her world tour, I don't have no friends.
Then I'm stuck with Sonny being mad at me. And
right. And that's the other reason why, cutting people off is a privilege, because of proximity. Like, we too close to cut each other off if we all in the same project.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. No, that's
or the same church, or the same,
Yeah. No, very true. Very true.
Let's see. What did you hate?
Well, I think I hated the obvious things, right?
Yeah.
So in Uncovering Love, it's obviously, Gianna's snake phony wasn't a best friend at all. Sade, and we find out that she only made friends with Gianna for purposes of getting close to Wyatt. And then, of course, what Wyatt did, so and hated that Wyatt went. Like, once you knew what had actually happened, you understood why he had nothing to do with Theo, but that he had also abandoned his son, right? Because of course, when we meet Wyatt, the very little that we get about him in the prologue is that he's an upstanding guy, right? He's a good guy and expect that he's going to be a good father. So the fact that he wouldn't even have a relationship with his son was just kind of like, oh, wow. And even Gianna, I think, is indicates that she was a little surprised by that, but also kind of felt like, look, if he doesn't want to be around his son, I don't want to force the issue. And knowing that his new wife, her ex-best friend, was also very much threatened by Theo's existence. Well, I don't want my child around her either. So Gianna was just kind of like, okay, fine. So I think the things that I hated in Uncovering Love were the obvious ones, and then the things I hated in Blue were the obvious ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did not have Richie being the stalker on my
Me
bingo
either,
card.
girl.
I was like, dun, dun, dun. Oh,
Yes.
sacre bleu.
Yes.
So that was surprising and shocking. And you know, with Jacoba, I thought that Monique did a great job of laying out for us why, even when you have resources, right? If you are, why it is not straightforward for many women to leave domestic violence
Absolutely.
situations,
Absolutely.
right? And sad that Jacoba had to, go through the experience of being placed under arrest, interrogated, right? And then this ninja had the nerve to be like, oh, she snitched on me. If you don't have a stadium of seats, sir, but let her shoot you first, right? I mean, it just, it was those kinds of things that you hated in, I'm not even going in order, but obviously with the sex tape coming out, and you're just like, oh, this is why you don't let snakes in you, people that if you don't like their energy, you just stay away from them. And so there was nothing that was, I think, controversial in terms of hating, right? I think I hated all of the obvious things where you're like, oh, die, just die. And most of those people did ultimately die, where you were like, yay.
They did. Good riddance. I agree with you. I hated all the bad guys, but there were also two not plot elements, but like themes in Blue that upset me, that I didn't have any themes, I don't think, in Uncovering Love that upset me. But thing one, like you're talking about how difficult it is for women to leave. So this is from Blue, how difficult it is for women to leave abusive relationships, but also how people can see a woman being abused and not do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning-ish of Blue, him and her up, choking her or something he doing to her, and the bodyguards are standing right there. And I'm saying to myself, well, whose body are you guarding? Like, what? How you gonna let him beat my ass? Like, you ain't gonna say nothing. And it just reminded me of, or not reminded me, but it made me think of like all of the child stars, or even like adults who literally, like, whether it's a D-list movie all the way up to the Oscar winners, or somebody, a singer-songwriter that you might have never heard of, all the way up to Beyonce, a la the elevator video. There's how much people can have like internal turmoil in their camp, or be under the what's the word I'm looking for? Like under the control of friends and family members, even though they're the face and you think that they're the one in control, and you think that they're the one with the money, and you think that their life is beautiful, but actually they're getting their ass beat and everybody watching. Or they're being financially abused and everybody's watching, or they're being emotionally abused and everybody in the camp is watching. And so we on a private plane and I'm getting my ass, like I can say, we on a private plane, I'm getting my ass beat and everybody got their head down on their phone.
Yep.
Because they know that whoever this person is that is abusing me, they're the one that has to stay happy, not me.
Yep.
As the artist. And so I was very irritated, and I wanted all of them to be shot. Minimum stabbed for watching her get beaten, not doing nothing. But
and it going back to the point about even when you have the resources, right? Because she had her own money. She had her, it's not like Romeo was her manager where he had control of the money, but she stayed. And
he knew enough people to get back close to her anyway.
Yeah. Which has got to be terrifying. To say to yourself, even with my resources, I'm not going to be safe. So,
so that was one. And then the other one was their little mini breakup. So her, in her tape. Right. So in her expressing herself about her sadness, or her, whatever her feelings are around embarrassment, whatever, shame around this sex tape being out. And she says, he's my security. She don't mean that. She don't mean that's all he is, but that's how he hears it. And so he gets in his feelings a little bit around being, quote unquote, that's all he is to her.
Yeah.
And I wanted to slap him.
Well, I mean, you know, don't you don't have to, but he didn't need to be slapped. He needed words. He needed like more context
Why
and
was you listening? We wasn't even talking to you.
well, because that happens. People overhear things that are not directly spoken to them. And yeah, what I will say is that they did not stay in that place of confusion
No, they didn't.
for a long period of time where you're looking at him like, really?
Why are you still holding on to this?
Yeah, I thought you were more emotionally intelligent than that. But I kind of got it, right? Where it was like uh, it was almost like, and I think I said this to you in our like text about it, whereas I felt like it was for him, he was like, this is why I wanted to keep it professional. This
Yeah.
is why I didn't want to put myself out, have us go there, because now I'm out here by myself. And oh, by the way, I'm a very private person too, right? And now my face is splashed all over the place.
Right.
And initially he took that in stride, right? Initially he took in stride when they go shopping in the blogs, right? Because they're pretending to be a couple.
Yeah.
And they go shopping and someone gets a photo, or I think the saleswoman took the photo, they suspect, and it gets posted and he's a little irritated, but they haven't even slept together yet.
Right.
But it's like then the sex tape goes viral and he's having that inner dialogue, and to a certain extent he says to her like, I'm a very private person too. Like this was one of my concerns about us being together, that like my face would be plastered everywhere and everybody would know who I am and that we're together. And, you're going to be dismissive about me and call me just security in your moment of, as if we're not in this together. Right.
Yeah.
So I felt like he needed to just like have his moment, because her intentions were not to be dismissive of him, but she could have been more cognizant of her words, and he could have not immediately taken that way, but they were both very, they were emotional about it in different ways. They were understandably both feeling violated, because they were both violated. And had to recover. It makes me think of, so right now, there's the drama that's been unfolding, continuing to evolve with New Orleans Pelicans star Zion Williamson, and apparently the sex workers that he got her pregnant, and I guess that's now his girlfriend, and they announced their pregnancy via the gender reveal online, which brought out another sex worker that he was sleeping with, who is very, very, very upset about this.
What's she mad about?
I suspect she's mad that she didn't get pregnant first.
That she didn't get picked. Well, I'm sorry.
As it's, but she has been on a tirade for the last 2. I think people have said it's going on week 3. I haven't been keeping track, but it's like, she has been on a Twitter rampage ever since the gender reveal stuff hit social media, and has recently upped the ante, saying, well, if the wire that you promised me doesn't come through, I'm releasing the sex tape of you and I I don't care about criminal or civil charges. Girl, exactly. Because of course people immediately were like, guess what? That's illegal. And she's like, I don't care, because, I have proof that he has sent people to threaten me. And I'm like, that does not cancel out.
That doesn't mitigate the crime you saying you're finna do.
But she's like, I let him spit in my mouth. I let him pee on me. I let him, it just, yeah. And so people are like, I would not be
got to keep that, sister.
Yeah, articulating all of this for the world to see, because she beat you to the punch and popped up pregnant, and I guess you didn't. So she's got her check. She's got her check, in the form of child support for the next 18 years.
Oh no! This one I want to intervene.
Yeah. So but it's just that, we went down this rabbit hole and talking about sex tapes and people, violating, because people are also like, unless she's pegging him, people are like saying that she's going to release a tape of them having sex is so passe, right? It's like that's the norm now.
Everybody got a sex tape, girl.
Literally. And
I'm
even the
finna make
pegging.
one. Right.
You know,
and
if
even
that's
that,
the
so
case,
what?
Exactly. I mean, that's not going to do what she thinks it's going to do. That young man signed a $200+ million contract 2 years ago. He's still quite wealthy. Right. Yeah. So.
Oh, that's a lot. So to your point, yes, I can see how I can see how feeling like and to what you're saying, like you never know which way it's going to go. And so sometimes the sex tape comes out and people are like, oh, think of the children.
Right.
And then other times the sex tape comes out and people are like, who cares?
Exactly.
It just depends on right. It just depends on how close you are to the most recent scandal and if you are on a slow news day and blah blah blah. So I totally get her, and this was her first foray into this. Something that I kept pushing front of mind is that she was new to all of this. And so I think today they saw Beyonce at Cannes trying to leave a restaurant, and she had to literally almost put a hood on her. I mean, just to be able to walk down the street.
Yeah.
And so, but she know Beyonce been doing this for like 20 years.
Exactly.
25. Exactly. And so for Jacoba, like this is all brand new. And so people even like having this kind of access to me is just like unnerving and unsettling, and where did it come from and who did it and who in my camp and why, and it just brought all of this stuff up. And again, for him the similar reasons.
And in fairness to both of them, right, like that is just because sex tapes have become so commonplace, like I can't imagine feeling that level, that being violated in that way. Me either. Because they were clearly in her parents' house.
Yep.
So like you said, it was obvious, and we know it was Sunny. Mm-hmm. We find out it was Sunny, but like someone in her circle that recorded her and then put the tape out. So someone she had allowed into her parents' home, where she thought she was safe, where she thought she had this, bubble of safety and privacy, and then they go and do that. So it's the embarrassment, it's the betrayal, the anger, the fury, all of those things. Which is why I was like, I gave her grace for the way she reacted, and I gave him grace for the way that he reacted to her reaction, mostly because it did not go on for too long. He didn't drag it out for days on end, weeks on end, not talking to her. They end up having the conversation they needed to have sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't have to like slap Blue and be like, Blue, knock it off. Right.
Yeah. And I'm always harder on the guy. So
you are, which is fine.
Get over it.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Let's see. What surprised you? Or if anything.
Well, so I'll start with Blue, right? Because I as I said before, I was not expecting Richie to be like, he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Like he was gone. Man killed his own wife. And I was like, oh damn, this just wow.
He went off the deep end.
Yeah. And had never said anything, but that goes back to, right, when people are not in their right mind, trying to make logical arguments with them just doesn't make any sense, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a surprise of just how close, right, that the danger was to her all along. And she had no idea because he never said anything. And it was like, how am I supposed to read your mind? Not that anything would have resulted from that, but again, going back to like twisted minds and things, because he was
holding her accountable to something that she had no way of being accountable to.
Exactly. Right. She had literally no idea. And it got dark, right? Yep. Like when Richie goes off the deep end, it gets dark, right? The father, Gina's dead, the father's shot, the mother is being held, kidnapped. It was like, whew, wow. Whereas if you compare Gray and Gianna's store, well, in fairness, they blew up Gianna's store and, the car accident. So there was drama there too, where, we find out, Sade, the ex-best friend, was behind that, really trying to hurt Gianna. I think so. I guess with Uncovering Love, it was like, I was surprised because that's when we find out about Blue.
Right.
And initially Gray is unwilling to tell her right, about Blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you reaching out and you're like, he got a twin. What? You were irritated. And I was like, well, I was like, wait, we find out why he is tight-lipped about Blue. And of course, because we find out Blue was deep undercover with the FBI. So it really was a matter of like safety and security.
Yeah.
But of course, Gianna did not react well to that at all. But I do remember being like, oh, so we got a twin. Well. Identical, you say?
Right.
Swooped in and saved her because she would have been burnt toast had he not, just been keeping an eye on things. But I think that was the only like pleasant surprise from the first time I read it, when I was like, oh, there's a twin, you say? Another fine ass Summer's name.
The twin was a surprise for me in Uncovering Love. Also the thing that was a surprise for me, and not because it came out of nowhere, but just because I wouldn't have thought of it, is that what they were covering up was like a child abuse ring.
Yes.
Yes. Or child sex abuse ring. And that it put me in mind of like the Cash for Kids scheme. How they were sending the children to jail for money and stuff. And but in this instance, like, it's so common. I think we talked about this in the chat too, of what was I watching? Oh, the movie Spotlight, where the attorney, that movie is about the Catholic sex abuse scandal in Boston and how a team of investigative reporters that work for the Boston Globe were the ones to crack that story. And one of the attorneys and that team that works for the Boston Globe is called Spotlight. That's the name of the team.
Okay.
But they were speaking with one of the attorneys for the families, and he says, and I really love that movie, so I can get into it, but I won't. But he says, if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to abuse one.
Ooh.
And he talked about how many people have to look the other way, how many systems and rules have to be bent, how many parents have to be hushed in order to allow this to keep going. And so in the situation with the judge and the children, and we find out, like you were saying before, Gianna's father caught on to it. He was getting too close. He wouldn't let it go. And how many people knew that about this judge, knew his predilection, knew that he was a predator, and still didn't protect these children, let him sprinkle crack on the babies.
Yes.
You go sprinkle crack on the children.
I was like, this is feeling very Dave Chappelle. The skit, Dave Chappelle's like, sprinkle a little crack on them. It definitely was, right. And Gray, and you know what, kind of loved, because you're taking me back, that Gray was just, he was haunted by the first young man's death, right? And talking to the family. And he's like, I know that things can go wrong. I know that, kids can get into stuff that their parents don't fully know and understand what's going on. He's like, but I can't let this go. This is not right, and it's because of that feeling with respect to the first young man that he, won't let it go. And he keeps digging and digging and digging. And also we find out that Gray was like planted there in that particular department, to sniff out, because there was corruption that was suspected, and Gray was kind of planted there to see what was going on. But, had he not just been like, well, we can't figure out what happened. Oh, well, with one young man, right, where he's like, test the hair, because they're like, oh, it's like literally laying on top of the two young men, like the packets of cocaine, right, or like in their hands.
Right.
And he says, well, it has them, run toxicology and test the hair. And of course it comes back clean. So I appreciated those kinds of details as well. It reminded me, Gray's story reminded me a little of, and I think I said this to you before, Ashley Nicole's Mine series. It's a trilogy.
And I still don't think I've read that. I don't think I have.
Detective Jason Rivers, where it was a similar, you are getting the imagery of this fine, big black man, just gorgeous, who loved the children. But it's a case, right, involving young black men and him just not being willing to believe, that victim after victim after victim, just, wrong place at the wrong time. Like, it
Yeah.
becomes very clear that there's a serial killer that is tracking these young men and going after them. And, Detective Jason Rivers just refusing to go with status quo. Right. And you hope, number one, that there are police officers like that exist. You hope that they continue to have the perseverance to stay doing what they do, because that probably has to be incredibly mentally and emotionally and physically taxing, right?
Yeah.
Day in, day out. As much as we talk about the police officers that don't do right.
And I think too, like the fact that the courage, and I think he had a little bit more leeway here. Leeway is not the right word I'm looking for, but because he didn't work there.
Yep.
So latitude. Thank you. He didn't have the baggage that comes from working in that precinct.
Yep.
But I will also say that, like, the courage to believe these poor families.
Yeah.
Because I think the temptation, especially when it's like, just clear the case, is to be like, yeah, they was high. As opposed to, no, I'm gonna keep expending resources, people, cars, talent, testing, which, if you live in the city, does not come easy. Because I believe these parents, and I don't want this to just get swept under the rug.
Right.
Just in the name of being able to tag it, we cleared the case.
Yeah.
And the joy that it likely brought these families when their children's names were cleared.
Yes.
And that, everyone doesn't go on thinking that, oh, wow, you never know, I guess all Black kids are on drugs, or, whatever it is.
Right. No, it's all of that, of that, which she didn't have to give us that. Right.
Nope.
She didn't have to give us that. So, as we've talked about before, we appreciate when authors, add those things to it. It just adds to the richness of the story. Not that the story would have been lacking without it. Right. But you appreciate when, in a context like this, they add, because this could have just been a love story, right? Just, he's a detective and it is what it is. And, without going into, that this case that he can't let go of turns out to have a connection to her parents and so on and so forth. And for him, it was all about getting justice for this one young man. And he ends up, being able to give her closure, because would she have been able to move forward without the closure? Right. I mean, she had been holding on to it for 3 years at that point. And no one would, like, I initially I was upset with the sister. And yet once the sister articulated her rationale, I gave the sister more grace. Because the sister was just kind of like, it was so painful that it was easier to just
believe it and walk away.
Take the official line for purposes of moving on. And you just can't even imagine being in that situation at all, where, both parents are gone and allegedly one at the hands of the other.
Right. And of course, like, how that would immediately sour their relationship at a time when they needed each other the most. But for Gianna, it's like, no, hell no. If for her sister, it's like, why are you bringing this up every time? Like, it's hard enough that they're gone, and the cognitive dissonance that comes from thinking that your father did this to your mother, when up to that point you would never have believed that. And to your point, and it was illustrated in the book, or documented in the book, was she was just like, girl, just come on. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go back to, let's try to forge a life past this. And Gianna was like, I literally cannot.
No, it's just it's
a lot.
It's a lot.
The other thing that surprised me from Blue was that Quay at the end told the truth anyway. She told the truth about selling the picture even after Sonny was dead. And Sonny was the only one who could corroborate that. But in the hospital room, she tells, I don't know if where they still in the hospital room, but somehow she tells her the truth about selling that photo anyway. Even knowing that selling the photo was going to put her in harm's way with Romeo. I was very surprised that she told that. Were you?
So as I read it, Quay did not realize that at the time that she sold the photo. as I
Did she
read
not?
it,
Okay, am I
she
collapsing
didn't
two
know
things? Okay.
that. Yeah, I like Jacoba tells us that was the first time that Romeo put his
Yes.
hands on her,
Yes.
but Quay
Jacoba says
didn't
that,
know
not
that,
Quay. Yes.
right?
Okay.
So but Quay, I think Jacoba does end up telling Quay that, and of course that adds to Quay's guilt. But yeah,
Yes.
I took it as Quay wanted, like after like literally being at death's door, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
of Sonny and what was the guy's name? Zeke, was that his name?
Zeke, yeah.
The crazy ex-boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
which Sonny was just but
Child.
people like Sonny are interesting characters, right? Because as much as Sonny was pushing the, you should be with Zeke, I can't, and it's like, well, girl,
You
how does this
sleeping with
work?
him.
But it was like, so if she were to follow your advice,
Right.
how that gonna work, girl? Like, how?
Right.
I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to just stay quiet and say nothing?
Just close your mouth up.
Seriously. So I felt like Quay told Jacoba the truth after that, like, true brush with death, and it was just like,
Yeah.
I don't want any secrets between us. I want to clean my slate completely, and that
Yeah. Yeah.
starts with also telling you that I did this and apologizing and saying, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, and I'm so sorry that it ended up causing you trouble.
Yeah.
um so I think she just couldn't carry that on her conscience after everything that had happened.
Yeah. And I wonder how often that happens.
Mm.
With celebrities and their tangent, like their extended family members.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and especially because if money is the issue, like if she did it for the money, you can't ask them for money, especially if that's been your habit.
Right.
And so here's this opportunity to get, two, three, four, 10, depending on who the celebrity is, $1,000, and no harm done, right? It's just a little thing, and she was with him anyway, and I'm sure she talked herself all the way into that one.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like when we find that out, I was a little, dare I say, surprised, right? Because from what we had seen of Quay,
Yeah, that wasn't her.
That did not seem to be her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even though, I mean, it was easier to forgive her once she made the mea culpa, because you were like, okay, well, she's not a bad person. She just made a bad decision.
Yeah.
And of course, Lord knows she suffers, right? She suffers for, keeping a snake in her circle and, not going with her intuition. Definitely. Of kind of cutting things off with Sonny. But for the reasons that you said, these things keep going. So, yeah. Yeah, it just, that ended up being, I was like, oh, I didn't have that on my bingo card either.
Me either.
Zeke rolling up to the party, and Byron and poor Jeremiah getting shot, and is he going to be paralyzed? I was like, wow, this has gone away. I did not expect.
Me either. I did not expect Quay to figure so prominently, or to have all that stuff happen to her, and it really, broadened the story significantly. And I said, well, child, who else I got to be worried about? Didn't he come to mama and the daddy? I said, listen. Then it's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much going on. I'm worried about everybody. I don't like it.
Yeah, it was because I think you're right. In the beginning, when you were starting to see Quay, we're getting Quay's point of view, and then we get Jeremiah, and it kind of like, But at that point, right? I'm trying to think, because you know what? I might have read Uncovering in Blue first, and then dived into the rest of Monique's catalog.
Okay.
In fairness, right? Okay. So I'm not sure, like you, like say, well, I didn't trust you, so I can remember being like, well, where is this going? And of course, once we got there, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, could have been done third person, but I then understood why they were getting their own points of view, because they were both like at death's door, and they were seeing the light, child, and thankfully they came back to be with the land of the living.
Right.
It was touch and go for both of them.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, that's true. Okay, I think we can agree on who needed to be stabbed. Everybody, indeed. All the bad people.
and listen, she gave us, justice, right? In both books, yes. The people who needed to get it got it.
Yes. Yes.
And so in that respect, it was very satisfying that the people who needed a knife got a knife, got a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
I
It was
I was well satisfied.
me
I mean, in
too.
Sade, it was, I mean, she goes to jail, not in a Colombian prison, but I was satisfied with her going away for the rest of her natural life. And,
Mm-hmm.
but sad for the baby, right? That would now
Yeah.
be raised without either parent. So,
Right. Right. Um, Favorite character or character you most identify with?
I mean, well, the favorites are easy, right? Because how do you not love Gray and Blue Summers? Like they
Yeah.
just delectable, delicious. And I really enjoyed the women, right? Like I enjoyed the women. I didn't want to have sex with the women, but I right, but I really enjoyed both of them, and I thought that Monique did a nice job. Like you said, they had smart problems, and you understood why they were moving a certain way. You understood
Mm-hmm.
Gianna's reticence, even while you were like, "But girl, he's everything. He wants to be
Right. He the
everything. Oh,
one, girl.
he's the one." But you understood why she was so gun shy, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't annoying, and it didn't go on to the point where I was like, "Girl, okay,
You
please
annoying.
just tell the man stop bringing your lunch and stop showing up," right? It didn't drag on to that point,
Mm-mm.
and even when I felt like she didn't overreact about the blue thing, because of course she had the bejesus scared out of her.
Right.
She was in the hospital, and she's like, "You look like Gray, but you are not Gray." And he did not tell me that he had a twin. And then Gray was being cryptic, right? So even that, I felt like when they had their moments where you were like, it was explainable and it didn't drag out too long. Right. They had their moments and then things got explained. And, even with her and the pregnancy, right. Again, her keeping it a quote unquote secret from Gray did not drag on, in a period of time where you're like, all right, girl, you blowing it. Like you pull yourself together because this is not okay. So I said that I really enjoyed the women. Because sometimes I lean more heavily, and I can be clear that like if I'm leaning towards the men, it's because of a sexual attraction, right? It's not because they were so much better people than the women. I like the men and the women equally. I love the parents, Grayson and Valentina Summers, right? They are adorable. The flashes that we get of them in the two stories is adorable. And I liked, poor Jacoba's parents, right? They were cute and adorable too. Like I liked in both instances, because we didn't have that in Uncovering Love, but I liked at least in Blue's story, you were getting these flashes of these older couples still very much in love with each other, still sexually active, right? Because like crows need love too. I again, that was a nice little touch that was added in. That didn't have to be, right? But it just added another layer with just a little bit here and a little bit there. Like she didn't overdo it. Although obviously we knew more about Gray and Blue's parents than Jacoba's parents, because we have two books where they make appearances versus just the one for Jacoba's parents. The other things I think I've already talked about, right? Like the relationship with Theo. And I also agree with you, something you said earlier about, Cash and Win teasing Blue when it was clear, right? That what they're playing, what was it? They're playing cards, and, he was supposed to be watching the movie with her or whatever, and he tries to play it off, but, Cash and Win laugh at him because as soon as she heads upstairs, he starts cleaning up his cards to go upstairs and follow her for the movie. It was little things like that, those little touches that were just so cute, because now we were seeing Blue in full teddy bear mode while also trying to preserve a little bit of his street cred, so to speak.
Right, trying to preserve his gangster.
Right. And even his dynamic with her father, right? From the very beginning, when his father's like, "Young man, you look like you want us to move some furniture around because it can happen." And he's like, "It can happen, but it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go, old man." And how that begins to evolve once it is clear that they are sleeping together. And Blue says something to her dad like, "Now, how would mama feel about you threatening me?"
Exactly.
The father's like, "Nika."
Right.
it was those little cute touches that I thought I really enjoyed them. They just added to the sweetness of the story, or the spice as was appropriate.
Yeah, yeah. I liked Tiffany in Uncovering Love. I think she was like one of my favorites. And I really liked Jacoba, I think might be my favorite character in Blue, just because it was such a ride for her.
Yeah.
And she really was my surrogate into the story more than anybody else. Favorite moment, least favorite moment.
There's a lot of favorite moments. And then as I think about it, there's quite a few least favorite moments. So
okay, go ahead.
I think candidly we've covered certainly on the least favorite moments, we've definitely covered those things. And then I think on the favorite moments, if I think about, again, his banter, Gray's banter with Theo, right? Seeing Gray's relationship with Tiffany. I think your point is well taken that, Tiffany's, we see her personality, and we see it more in her own book with Kingston, even more, but she was fully formed in the story. And Tiffany's dynamic with Theo. Yeah. Also, which was very sweet, right? That Theo really got like a whole family, not just a dad, but the instant aunties and uncles. I loved that Theo and Gray and Blue shared the passion for art and drawing, and how Blue was nurturing that within Theo, right? And that was something that they did together. I'm just thinking kind of if there were some other things that we didn't cover. I liked the moments between, one of the moments I liked, let's go into like Quay and Jeremiah, is when she visits him at his tattoo shop, and he's tattooing the girls or whatever in her crotch, she's into something, and he's like, "What we having for lunch, baby?" Like he just, and she kind of
interested.
Not at all, right? He's not fazed. He's not, it's clear that regardless of what Sonny is saying, that Jeremiah is who Quay believes him to be.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're not sure. In the beginning, you're kind of like, all right, she could be hating, but she could be accurate. And those two things are not mutually exclusive. Right. So it was, I did appreciate, I liked that moment because we were getting to see that Jeremiah was in fact who Quay believed him to be. Which, because that about Blue, but when we start getting more about Quay and Jeremiah, it's a bit of an unknown. We know that Quay is crazy about him. We know that Sonny hates him. We know that Sonny is a hater, but we don't know if Sonny's, suspicions about him are, completely unfounded and just nothing but hate, or if there is some there.
Yeah.
So that moment really kind of solidified. It's like, no, Jeremiah's a good guy. I think that's it for me in terms of like, other than, because the stuff that we've already covered.
Yeah. I think my favorites you spoke to for in Uncovering Love, it was just his determination to be with her and not in a creepy way. He wasn't a weirdo, but he just knew he was interested, and he saw her and he was like, that's it. and he went at her pace, while also making it really clear that he was interested in her. So any of the little moments like that, I enjoyed. For Blue, I think my favorite moments were the fact that like there were elements of the movies that they watched like, in the story.
Yes.
And so when he rejoins the FBI and he busts in with his vest on and he all freshly got the new fade and whatever, it so made me think of Low Down Dirty Shame, right? When he comes in with his head bald and he got the shades on and whatever. The crazy brother or crazy sort of childhood person from Jason's Lyric ends up being Richie. Yes, Bokeem Woodbine ends up being Richie's character. And there were a couple other things that they watched, that maybe one or two more, but I can't remember the rest of the movies, that some element of that was present in the story. And I don't know if it was intentional, but if it was, good for her. And if it wasn't, good for her, because the movies was kind of where they came together, but you could also see like elements of it. Like you could basically see her taste in the movies that they were watching, and in how she crafted the story.
This is why I like having these conversations with you, because I don't think I picked up on that until you said it.
Media literacy is like my hobby, so I'm always looking for connections and whatever. But anyway, yeah. Okay. So, who did you want to get their own book?
So I like that Tiffany gets her own book, and I think the younger sisters are. Let's see, Tiffany's book, they are graduating high school. Maybe one is a freshman in college. So in that respect, we don't have to go through all of them, but I like that Tiffany got her own book. So we get to see Tiffany Summers standing on her own 2 feet. I don't think, as I'm kind of talking this through with you, I didn't need more on Quay and Jeremiah.
No, they're happy.
Yeah, they're happy. They're good to go. I think that's it. I don't think that they're from either one of them, because it's not like there were other ancillary characters where you get so much of a flash where you're like, oh, but what happened to so and so? Right. Things get wrapped up, I think, in both books where the questions get answered.
Yeah, I felt satisfied. I haven't read Tiffany's book. You told me it's not a romantic suspense, which makes me sad, but I still might read it. I wish so. Also, all of Monique, she doesn't only do romantic suspense.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So I may get into Tiffany's book. I have another assignment for an upcoming session, so I'm focused on that. But an upcoming episode, so I'm focused on that. But I may circle back after that and grab Tiffany. How did you feel about the updates we got in Blue from everybody we met in Uncovering Love?
Oh, I loved it. Right.
Yeah.
Any time spent with this family, right? You're like, oh,
they drew me in for sure.
Yes, which is why Tiffany's story just kind of continuing that while also watching her be a woman, since we meet her as a teenager, right? And then you're like, oh no, woman grown. Because I think she's 21, 22, or whatever with Kingston, and Kingston has several years on her, and he's also in law enforcement. So kind of keeping that he works for the DEA. So yeah, it has its own drama, but it's not the romantic suspense of the two brothers.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you still have any questions from either or both books?
I don't think so. I think both were wrapped up very tidy, right? Where the questions got answered in a very satisfying way, in my opinion. Where I'm not even like, I didn't really care for how that was done. I didn't have that reaction. Like both were wrapped up in a very satisfying, where I was like, okay, yeah, no, I like this. This is. Everybody who need to be dead is dead. Good. Yes. Good job. And these two couples are together and happy and in love, and the parents are alive and whole and
everybody
okay.
Happy. Yes.
Yeah.
And, I will say that her being kind to her characters and giving us the resolution that we needed and making the villains very clear and those kinds of things is what kept me off of social media. From finding her on the internet and being like, hey girl, hey, why you do that?
Right. So, you were like, okay, I don't have to take a connecting flight to Pensacola, because I don't know how many direct flights there are from
how far is that from where my daddy lived at? Let me see.
Well, maybe do some geomapping. You never know.
Because I was getting ready to be like, hey, Watch yourself, okay? Why did you treat my people this way? No, she far from my daddy, so I can't harass her that way.
I was about to say, I can remember looking and be like, oh, this is complicated to get to. This ain't easy to get to.
Yeah,
Oh, all
Pensacola
right.
is around the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
All righty. Well, do you have any final thoughts? Anything else you want to share?
No, I just, I'm glad that we got into it. And I'll look forward to seeing if you do decide to read Tiffany, what your impressions are and whatnot. But I'm glad that we did the Summers twins.
Me too. I would have never
them.
picked these up if not for you.
Yeah, yeah. See, this is one of the many ways that I bring sunshine to your life.
It's true. You do. I can't deny it.
Exactly. So we were able to do the Summers twins, pun intended.
Good night, crazy.
Au revoir.